Today, I'm outlining 3 specific identifiers of healthy love so that you never fall into a narcissistic relationship again. Hello, and welcome back to the episode. I can imagine that there is a part of you who really longs to share your life with somebody. But if you are just starting to think about dating or what that might be like, there's probably a voice that won't leave you alone. This question mark of, what if I can't tell the difference between a healthy person and a not healthy person? What if I literally do not know what healthy looks like? And what if I fall for it again? If you've thought those thoughts, I am so glad that you're here, because today you're not going to only better understand why that voice is so normal and to be expected after you've come out of a narcissistic relationship, but what you can do to actually build your confidence. So this episode is going to hand you back something that you probably didn't realize that you lost. What I'm going to talk to you about today is 3 specific identifiers of healthy relationships. And these are 3 things that narcissistic relationships never have. So you'll have something concrete to measure against. I'm going to give you a clear relationship spectrum so that you can ask yourself, is this healthy, or am I seeing a lot of red flags? And I'm going to give you a really easy tool to use in order to identify if you are ready for a healthy relationship. Be sure to stick around to the very end of the episode where I pull an oracle card. This will offer you a message that you can use to stay more conscious in your healing this week. Okay, so take a deep breath and let's begin. I love talking about this topic because if you have been in a narcissistic relationship, chances are pretty good that you don't really have a good template of what healthy love is supposed to look like. And so really educating yourself around, this is what healthy looks like and feels like. This is what I know that I can expect, that's normal to expect, is really helpful as you're starting to rebuild that confidence and that sense of self-worth to go back into dating. So I'm going to talk to you about the 3 very specific identifiers of healthy love. And there are many identifiers, but as I was thinking about this episode, I was like, what are like the top 3? And this is what I've come up with. So the first one is safety. We have to feel safe with our partner. When you think about this, you're choosing somebody that you are going to be spending your life with, and you want that time to be spent feeling safe. You don't want to feel like you're walking on eggshells and having to anticipate their moods and having to adjust to what you're saying so you don't set them off on a rage fit. You want to be able to come home, and as the garage door is opening up, you're thinking about how excited you are to walk into an environment that allows you to exhale. You don't want to be bracing for what you're about to walk into. So just even clocking in your body, like, do I feel excited and safe and open and expansive with this person? The majority of the time, right? Relationships, healthy relationships are not perfect all of the time, but we're going for a majority feel here. And I'll talk a little bit more about that coming soon. We have to have a foundation of safety in order to allow us to do many things that are also part of healthy relationships. So we have to feel safe first if we're going to share our feelings with somebody. We have to feel like there is emotional safety. When I share something, they're actually interested in hearing about it and learning about it and being curious about it. And it's not shut down, or I'm not told that I'm wrong or that I'm too much or that I'm making all of the problems in the relationship. There's really that foundation of, I see you, I want to see you, I want to try to understand your experience that's inside your brain. We have to have safety in order to be able to find the repair after the rupture. So healthy relationships, there will be moments of disagreement and moments where you have one opinion and they have another opinion. And to be able to have a conversation where, again, you're sharing your feelings, there has to be a level of safety there to be able to come back around to where both people feel seen and heard and like good with the outcome of that conversation. So we're shooting for repair always after there's some sort of rupture, some sort of disagreement. But in order to have those reparative conversations, you have to feel safe enough to share, and you have to be willing to hear the other person out. So this safety, it applies on both sides. We're not just looking for a partner who makes us feel these ways and is curious about our feelings. We really want to become the woman ourselves who also is capable of giving our partner these things, because this is always a two-way street. Feeling safe is also going to allow you to feel playful and happy. So if you look back on your last relationship, or maybe several last relationships, I'm sure there are periods of time, maybe after you came back together after a big fight, where there was a lot of that hope, right? You were back in potential land, if you're familiar with that term, where things are good. Things are going to be better. We're back together. We're connected. He's going to be different this time. I'm going to be different this time. And maybe it felt really playful in those moments because there was a connectiveness that gave you some inherent amount of feeling safe. What we're shooting for, though, in a healthy relationship is feeling playful and happy a majority of the time. So again, when we're safe, our needs are met. We're not in this hypervigilant state of, I need to be aware of my surroundings. I need to brace. But I can actually, again, exhale, be present, enjoy, allow my inner child to come out and play. And when your inner child comes out and your partner's inner child comes out, it is one of the most beautiful things in feeling that level of lightness and playfulness. Safety in a relationship is really going to make you feel like you have a teammate, somebody that you are on the same team as, who can look at life's challenges and be like, we are taking this on together. It's more of we're on this side, both looking out at the challenge, instead of we are looking at each other as the challenge. So getting on the same page and, again, being able to communicate your needs, communicate your experience, your desires, your opinions, helps you be able to say, yeah, we are choosing each other, and together we get to look outward and deal with life shit. Because having a teammate to be able to do that with feels really, really good. But safety has to be the number one foundational part of the relationship. And this is emotional safety, physical safety, financial safety, spiritual safety. We have to be able to feel safe on all of these levels with our partner in order for us to then start building the relationship on top of it. So if you think about a construction site, they're always laying the really solid foundation first before anything is actually built, because without that, everything comes crumbling down. And safety is really built in little moments. It's built by building trust consistently over time. So if you've been love bombed, if you've experienced love bombing, that is not consistent, right? That is a very acute level of we're sprinting and this feels really good, and then we're coming to a dramatic halt and then things feel really bad. When you are dating somebody, you're looking for consistency over time. How do you share little bits consistently over time? How does he show up? Do his actions meet his words? Do your actions meet your words consistently over time? We're really building that trust level foundation that gives us that sense of safety. So time is really your friend in a healthy relationship. Things can go slow, things can feel consistent, things can feel safe. This also signals to your nervous system that you're safe, that you're not on that jacked up roller coaster that's going fast and high and you're dropping your stomach and you're wanting to vomit. This is fun and exciting, but it's consistent and it's safe. The second identifier of healthy love is both people having self-awareness. So again, this is both people practicing this self-awareness, because when you are in a dynamic with each other, you are each going to trigger each other in ways that you won't be triggered if you're not in a relationship. That is just part of being in a romantic relationship, that person becomes one of our closest attachment figures, and it can stir up all of our stuff that we have with previous attachment figures and in our childhood. So we need to have practiced, and typically this is done in therapy or in coaching or plant medicine work, right? Some sort of introspection around ourselves. I really want to understand and know my triggers so that I can communicate them clearly to my partner. And I want him to know his triggers so that he can communicate his to me clearly. When we can communicate what we know to be true about ourselves based on our past experiences, that gives us control and agency around being with those parts and managing those feelings that come up as we're triggered. And it also allows us to take accountability if we react from a parts place, right? If we are in that reactive place and we accuse them of something because we're scared, or if we lash out and we didn't really want to lash out, but we didn't take the time to self-regulate and process before it actually came out of our mouth. We are human after all. Even if you've done a ton of self-work, there will be moments when you have to take accountability in a healthy relationship. And so if I'm able to understand, like, hey, this is something that I know typically is like a tender spot for me, I can give my partner a heads up. And then I am holding myself accountable to when I need to circle back around and take accountability. I'll give you an example here from my relationship. So from my past narcissistic relationship, I had a very strong trigger around my ex staying up late and being on his computer, because it came out later in the relationship that he was doing things online that were harmful to our relationship. And so when I was with my now husband, when we were first together, and he's a night owl. He loves to stay up. That's his time. That's his jam. He loves to have that time to himself. And it was really activating for me in the beginning because I had the experience of what that meant with my ex. And I was projecting that onto what that meant with my now husband. And so for me to be able to communicate to him, like, hey, I have a standing trauma with this. I'm working on it. But just so you know, this space, I might need to have a lot of conversations around what you're doing when you're up late at night. And for me to go to him with that vulnerability and that awareness, he was much more receptive to the then conversation that we would have about that than if I would come to him and be like, what were you doing last night? So again, that self-awareness allows you to enter into those conversations from a vulnerable place. And with a healthy partner who loves and respects you and wants to understand you, hopefully that is met with a tell me more instead of a you're fucking crazy. A really good tool that you can use and that I teach my clients in communicating is the story in my head that I'm making up is. The story in my head that I'm making up is that you were on the computer doing things that are harmful to our relationship because that's what I experienced in my past. And that is a good door opener to having a conversation that doesn't feel accusatory because it is a story in your head based on something that happened. And that's not to make it sound like, again, you're crazy because you're making up stories in your head. But a part of you has that lived experience of what happened. So having the self-awareness is going to give you such a leg up in your communication game. And really, if I would argue, if you're listening to this podcast, and definitely if you have been a client of mine or you're interested in this type of work, this deep work, self-growth is most likely a value of yours. And so to look for a partner who matches that, who also values self-growth, is going to make your guys' life a lot easier in being able to understand each other and the importance that this has on a relationship. Because if I'm acting out of my default patterning and don't have awareness of it, and he's acting out of his default patterning and not having awareness of it, we both feel really out of control of the way that we're showing up. And so to have that self-awareness gives you agency. It gives you the ability to say, yes, this thing happened to me in my past, and this is what I'm doing to actively work on it so that it's not continuing to show up repeatedly in my present with you. What I really believe is that this is not a saying that I came up with, but I hold it very close to me, is our trauma is not our fault, but it is our responsibility. So me as an adult, I have the responsibility of working through what happened to me growing up and in past relationships so that I'm not continuing to dump that on my child or my partner or my friends, right? There comes a place when you are an adult where you've got to say, hey, I got to look at this shit or else I'm going to keep showing up in the same exact ways and getting frustrated with myself, getting frustrated with my partner, choosing the same type of people. You're going to continue in the same pattern. Carl Jung has a really beautiful quote that says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And I don't know about you, but I do not want my unconscious directing my life. I want to feel much more in control of knowing what's happening so that I can make shifts and tend to myself where I need to tend to myself. Okay, so far we have safety and we have self-awareness as two identifiers. The last super important identifier is having the ability to communicate. I remember when I was trying to figure out what was happening with my narcissistic ex. I was on a hike with my dad, and he will spit these words of wisdom just like out of the blue, and it's like, oh, that really landed. I was processing through some fight that we were having, and he just looks at me and he said, "Bre, are you able to communicate with him?" And I was like, well, I mean, we get into a lot of fights, and I think I'm trying to communicate, but it doesn't feel really like it's doing anything. It doesn't feel successful. It feels like whenever we try to talk about something, it turns into a fight, and then I end up feeling like it's my fault. And he didn't judge. He didn't say anything like, that sounds terrible. What are you doing? All he said was being able to communicate is a really important part of a relationship. And I held that. And at the time, I wasn't ready to see that. I wasn't ready to make that the reason that I was going to leave the relationship. But that nugget really embedded in my head. And so communication, when you're looking at this relationship, when you're looking even in the early part of the dating, am I able to communicate? Are my emotions taken seriously? Am I able to come to this person and say, this is the story I'm making up? Or, oh my God, I had a really hard day at work. Can you hold some space? Or my friend is, we're having this tiff. I need to process through it. And are you able to come to that person, to the person that you're dating or that you're with, and that person be interested in what you have to say? I'll never forget in the early days of dating my now husband, I thought I had done all the work on being able to communicate clearly and state my needs and boundaries. And I had in so many ways. And then I started dating him and new triggers came out. And it was like, oh God, this is feeling really hard to say the thing that I need to say. And I remember one time specifically, I was really nervous to bring up how I was feeling about something because I was bracing on some level for how my ex used to treat anything that I brought up. It was always, this is wrong, you are wrong, you're being dramatic, you're blowing this out of proportion, stop feeling, essentially was the message. And so it was never met with open arms. And so when I did bring this forward with my now husband, he just sat down and he said, "Tell me more." And I lost it completely in that moment out of pure relief and feeling seen and feeling cared for. Because when somebody says, "Tell me more," it's like, oh God, this person cares. They want to understand. They're here to listen. They're not trying to fix. They're not trying to defend. They just want to understand. And that is such an important part of communicating is listening. We have to listen to our partner. And again, this goes on both sides. So for you to really do your self-work around if you get activated and you have a defensive part come up when that person is sharing something, it's like, how do I self-regulate in the moment so that I can be present, so that I can come to that conversation and say, "Tell me more." And you're looking for that same capacity from your partner. When we can communicate, we can talk about anything. And that brings a lot of clarity to the relationship. So both people are on the same page about are we good? Are we having a disagreement? Is there something that needs to be resolved? Are we going to come back to this? Clarity is so key. It's so key in a healthy relationship because you don't want to be confused. Confusion happens in unhealthy relationships. And we're going to talk about the spectrum here again in a little bit, but we really want to have that clarity. So the more that you can communicate about anything, whether it's how you're loading the dishwasher or if we're spending Christmas with your family, we really want to be able to come to all of those conversations with, I feel safe. I know I'm going to be received. And that doesn't mean that your partner has to agree. I want to make that crystal clear. because your partner may not agree with what you're saying. And there may need to be more conversation around what your partner then feels in order to find a compromise that feels good to both of you. And these conversations may take a couple of times of needing to return to. If there is a conversation that's happening, you're trying to communicate, both of you are getting activated, it's okay to also take space, but to name that you're going to come back to that conversation so that you can find the repair after the rupture. So you can find the clarity after this moment of where you have been split temporarily. So we really want to foster and practice this ability to pause and regulate and not let our protective parts attack. You think about an animal that gets pushed into a corner, right? It's like, and even that's a saying, like, you push me in the corner and I'm gonna bite back, or I don't know what the actual saying is, but that image of something being cornered, that doesn't feel good. And of course, all of your defenses and your protections are going to come out if that happens. So we really want to practice coming to conversations from a regulated state so that we're not coming with our guns blazing and backing our partner into a corner, which is going to lead to the defensiveness and to the shutdown and to not a resolve that you want from that conversation. So those are the three things that I really want you to hold on to make note of, put it in your phone, put it in your notebook, put it in your journal. Safety, self-awareness, and the ability to communicate. And as you date, I want you to keep those things very front of mind. Am I feeling this? Do I have this? And does this other person have this? Okay, so now to talk about the spectrum of healthy relationships. I've alluded to this a couple of times, and it's a really important concept. So on one end of the spectrum, we have a really toxic relationship with a narcissist or otherwise. On the other end, we have a really healthy relationship. And what we're looking for in order to determine what end of the spectrum we're on is, what am I feeling most of the time? In the unhealthy spectrum, we are feeling confused and unsafe and uncared for, and in some amount of activated sympathetic state in our nervous system because of the person most of the time. In the unhealthy relationships, you are feeling those things most of the time, with moments of feeling connected, moments of feeling seen, moments of feeling desired, right? And that's typically when you're in the love bomb phase of the cycle. So what are you feeling most of the time? That's what it would be in an unhealthy dynamic. In a healthy dynamic, what you would be feeling most of the time is clear, safe, regulated, and cared for. When you feel that most of the time, of course, again, there's going to be moments where you feel unseen, moments where you feel disconnected, moments when you feel confused. And that's normal. It's normal to have those little ruptures, and then you repair and you come back to baseline. But we want the baseline to be one of feeling clear, loved, cared for, respected, seen. Right now, as you think about your past relationships, where have they fallen on that spectrum? Have they been totally on one end or the other, somewhere in the middle? And that exercise helps to give you data, just data. As much as you can when you're looking back on your past relationships and on your past behavior of yourself and of your past partners, it's like, how can I look at this with non-judgment of that's where I was at that time? Now I have the agency to choose differently, which is what I know you want to do since you are here and you are listening to this podcast. So you're identifying that you have been in an unhealthy narcissistic relationship. You really want to have a healthy relationship at some point, but there's this fear of, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? How am I going to not choose another narcissist? Knowing what to expect in a healthy relationship, knowing these three identifiers is a really, really good start. Because not knowing what to expect and not having built the internal skills to show up as your half of that relationship is going to keep you in this place of the default patterning where you have the same expectations, the same patterns, and therefore the same action, the same type of relationships. And you deserve much more than that. So now you have some amount of the knowledge, three identifiers. What I also want you to have are the internal skills of being able to show up as this woman for your potential healthy partner as well. So I put together a free guide. It's called the Relationship Reset Guide. And this is going to help you identify where are you in being able to communicate and provide safety and feel secure on your own. It's going to walk you through some powerful questions. It's going to give you some takeaway tools to really get honest about where you are in being able to be a securely attached person that can show up in a healthy relationship. So it's completely free. That link is in the show notes. I really want you to go there right after you finish listening to this. Click through. I'm going to send it to you personally because I love that personal touch and getting to start conversations with you about where you are. So you can expect that from me. And I promise you that you will feel a level of clarity and or a shift from just the first question. So please go download that right now. And to end today's episode, of course, we are going to pull an oracle card. So I'm going to think about what is the message that you need to hear today. And the message is sit up straight. It is a picture of a chair. And it says, steel yourself, stack your vertebrae, literally and metaphorically. Prepare yourself because it is coming. You may be thinking you are not strong enough and you will buckle under the pressure, but sit up straight urges you to feel into your strength. Lengthen your spine. Breathe into the space between your bones. You are strong. You are fortified by your beliefs, convictions, values, and knowing. Sit up straight affirms your confidence. No need to slump. You got this. You can handle difficult situations. Sit up straight supports you now. So beautiful. I know that in your future, you will be sitting up straight confidently in a chair across from a person who's also sitting up straight confidently, loving each other in a really loving relationship. It is so possible for you. If I can get through the narcissistic nightmare that I went through and rebuild my confidence and my sense of worth and my communication skills and my boundaries to be able to now be in a really healthy marriage with almost a 1.5-year-old little girl, you can too. It is so, so, so possible. So go download that free guide. And until I see you in the next episode, please remember that you are not alone.